Rome. A general returns in triumph, and the city roars his name. Flowers fall from the rooftops. The legions march behind him. The world for one day is his. But in the chariot, just behind his shoulder, stands a slave with a single duty: to lean close through all the thunder of the crowd and whisper over and over, "Remember, you must die." The Romans understood something we have forgotten. The most dangerous moment in a man's life is not his defeat. It is his triumph. Stay and you will learn how the brightest of all beings fell, why every empire digs its own grave, and how to wear a crown without letting the crown eat the king. They call this one the father of all sins. Pride. Every other vice needs an occasion. Lust waits for beauty. Greed waits for gold. Wrath waits for an insult. Pride needs nothing but a mirror. And here is its genius. It is the one sin you cannot see in yourself. You can catch your own greed in the act. You can feel anger heat your face. But pride sits behind your eyes. It never appears in the mirror because it is the one holding it. The proud man can recite the flaws of every soul he knows, and finds, in his own ledger, nothing worth confessing. Like every master sin, it never travels under its own name. It calls itself standards. I simply expect excellence. It calls itself self-respect. I know my worths. It calls itself honesty. I say the things others are afraid to hear. Watch the man who cannot apologize, who turns every correction into a debate and every debate into a war. Notice that he no longer asks questions. Why would he ask? He already knows. He believes he is strong. He has only stopped growing. The first thing pride kills is curiosity, and it kills it so quietly that no funeral is ever held. Consider the oldest story they tell about this sin. Before the first city, before the first man, there was a being of light, the morning star. First among the angels, nearest to the throne, brightest in all creation. And it was not enough. He looked upon his own brilliance and made the original mistake. He believed the light belonged to him. I will ascend, he said. I will set my throne on high. Mark this well. Lust, greed, envy, these are the sins of men. Pride is older. Pride is the sin of angels. It does not attack your weakness. It attacks your excellence. The fall begins at the highest point. Now understand what pride takes from you first. Not your reputation. Not your throne. Your sight. The proud man cannot afford to see his own errors, so he simply stops looking. Every warning becomes jealousy. Every critic becomes a fool. Every failure becomes someone else's doing. And slowly, the people around him stop telling him the truth. They have learned what the truth costs in his presence. He ends as every proud man ends, in a room full of mirrors and flatterers, perfectly informed of his own magnificence and nothing else. There is no blindness so complete as the blindness that is certain it sees everything. A king once believed he was the happiest man alive. Croesus, so rich that his name still means wealth, 25 centuries later. He showed his treasure rooms to a visiting sage, Solon the lawgiver, and asked him, "Of all the men you have seen, Who is the happiest? He was waiting to hear his own name. Solon answered, Count no man happy until the end is known. The king laughed at him. What could endings matter against all this gold? Within years his son was dead. His empire was ash. And Croesus knelt on a pyre, crying the old sage's name into the smoke. The Greeks had a word for the disease, hubris. And they gave its cure a name as well. They called her Nemesis. She does not hunt the wicked, they warned. She follows the proud. 23 centuries later, the lesson had to be taught again. A minor artillery officer rose until he crowned himself emperor, took the crown from the Pope's own hands, and placed it on his own head. For a decade, Europe knelt. And that was precisely the problem. 60 victories had convinced him that a 61st was a law of nature. His own marshals warned him about the Russian winter. He was done listening. He marched 600,000 men east and led a frozen ghost of an army home. The pattern never changes. Pride keeps a receipt for every victory and burns the record of every warning. Past success becomes proof that ruin is impossible, right up until the morning ruin arrives. Now look at the age you were born into. Once pride needed a palace, a throne, a marble bust. Today, every soul carries a stage in its pocket. You do not post your life. You post your case, evidence, carefully selected, in the endless trial of how you wish to be seen. An economy of admiration, where worth is counted in watching eyes. And here is the trap beneath the trap. Your audience is busy performing too. A hall of actors, each playing the sovereign to an audience of sovereigns, each privately exhausted by the role. The ancients built one tower to reach the heavens. We carry one each and call it a profile. But now the secret, the one the proud man hides even from himself. Pride is not strength. Pride is armor. And armor is only worn where a man expects the blade. The one who must be superior is the one who suspects, in the cellar of himself, that he is not. The need to be envied. The hunger to be deferred to. The rage at every slight. These are not the habits of power. Arrogance is fear wearing a crown. Notice how the truly great carry themselves lightly. Having nothing to prove, they prove nothing. So when you meet the insufferable man, correct your eyes, you are not looking at strength. You are looking at a wound that has learned how to shine. So the work begins where it always begins. In confession. Not the polished boast disguised as a flaw, I work too hard, I care too much. The true sentence. Said alone in the quiet, where no audience can save you, I need to be seen as more than I am, because I am afraid that I am less. Say it once and feel something unclench. The performance pauses. The court adjourns. You cannot lay down armor you will not admit you are wearing. The proud man spends his life guarding a statue of himself. The free man walked out of that museum long ago. Learn then to tell the false coin from the true. Confidence and pride wear the same robes, and they are enemies. Confidence is built from evidence. Deeds done. Storms survived. It speaks quietly because it has nothing to sell. Pride is built from comparison, and it needs an audience the way fire needs air. Confidence says, I can do this. Pride asks, do they see that I did it? One survives failure and is even fed by it. The other shatters like glass. Here is the test, and it never lies. What do you do when no one is watching? And what do you feel when someone else is applauded? And guard the one thing pride cannot survive, the mind of the student. The moment you decide you have arrived, you have begun to leave. The masters of every craft confess the same strange thing: the deeper they go, the less they claim to know. That is not modesty for show. That is accurate sight. So make a practice of being corrected. Ask the question that reveals your ignorance. It is the only question that cures it. Once in a while, stand in a room where you are the least. It is the only room in which you grow. A man who can still be taught cannot truly fall. He was never balancing on the pedestal in the first place. There is strategy in humility too. The old courts knew it well. Carry your accomplishments the way a fighter carries his strength, invisible until the moment it is needed. Speak less of your victories, and the world will speak of them for you, and their voice, unlike yours, will be believed. When you win, hand out the credit. The power remains, only the noise departs. For the proud pay their courtiers in gold, and are paid back in flattery. The humble are paid in the one currency kings can never buy, the truth. Walk softly. Heaven itself, the proverb says, opposes the proud, but gives grace and good intelligence to the humble. Return now to the chariot. It's the roaring crowd. The whisper. The Romans did not put the slave there to spoil the general's finest day. They put him there to save the general's soul. They knew that no enemy outside the walls was as dangerous as the voice inside them saying, "You are a god now." So whatever you build, build the whisper into it. Keep one voice in your life that is allowed to say, "You may be wrong." Remember, you are mortal. The crown was never the danger. The silence around it is. Wear what you have earned, lightly, the way the sky wears its stars. The first sin fell from the highest place. You will not be the exception. The whisper is the exception. You have met the sin that falls. But there is another master, and he has been waiting through all of this, patiently. He does not want the crowd's eyes. He has no interest in your applause. He wants what is in your hands and in everyone else's. In all his centuries, he has never once said the word, enough. Grade. The hunger that owns its keeper. That story is next. It begins with a king whose wish came true.